Batman Forever is the third film in the continuity of the Batman motion picture series, beginning with Tim Burton's 1989 film Batman. Tim Burton was originally going to go ahead and do this movie, and this was going to be his last one, and it was kind of going to conclude as a trilogy. And there are elements to the movie that kind of sort of feel like it is a conclusion of a character arc, because I mean there are things specifically about the Batman character and his struggle between being Batman and Bruce Wayne, where he eventually finds himself asking, "Is this something that I want to keep doing? Can I really keep up with this in my own life as Bruce Wayne as well?" So that's something that Batman struggles with this movie, which I think it was an element of the Tim Burton vision of what this movie would have been, and apparently it was supposed to include Scarecrow as the main villain, as opposed to the villains we see in this film from Joel Schumacher, who's the new director this time around. And a choice like Joel Schumacher is an interesting one, because you could see him doing something in a similar dark kind of tone as Tim Burton had done with the previous two. I mean, like, obviously you look at something like The Lost Boys. It's a very extreme kind of movie, and has darkness, but also some exciting and almost fun and fancy free moments to it, I guess. So he seemed like an ideal choice, but the thing about Schumacher's approach for this film, his vision for the film, is that it was more, I don't know, agreeable or complicit with the desires of the studio, who, after Batman Returns, and getting some harsh criticisms about how dark that movie went, with kids running out of the theater crying, and Happy Meals sales down. They wanted something lighter. They wanted some more family friendly fare, and that's the tone that we get with Batman Forever. It's definitely more family friendly, I guess, and lighthearted and all that. It's not a dark, scary kind of movie. It's a fun movie, I guess. And I guess I can't really bury the lead much further, but I actually I love the movie. I think it's really, really entertaining, and it is kind of this wonderful mix of stuff that we got from the Tim Burton films, like certain, parts of the ideas of this character, and sort of the atmosphere of the character, and what it chooses to explore about the character. They remain with this third film, but it is also definitely in tune with the campier side of Batman, which people are quite familiar with the '60s TV program with Adam West and Burt Ward, and the villains of the week hamming it up, and we get that quite a bit with this movie, and there's stuff about it that's a lot more cartoony than what we've seen with the previous two Batman films. I like that it is this weird hybrid of the two, and I think it's just balanced enough. Where with the next film that Schumacher did, I think he went a little too far with the lightheartedness and over the top kind of stuff. You went too far there, but here I think it's just right, and I ultimately think that it is kind of a good alternative to the edgier kind of stuff with the Batman character portrayed in live action films. Which, I mean, in fairness, the darker, more mature stuff, it outweighs the fun and fancy free kind of stuff. At least with when it comes specifically to live action, the big budget kind of movies of this nature. So I think it's a good alternative. I mean, sometimes, yeah, you want the Dark Knight sometimes, but other times you want the Caped Crusader, the dynamic duo. You kind of want that, and I think that this movie it delivers on that spirit, and I would say I definitely have, just with the first two, I have a nostalgia for it. And there's always going to be that. This is actually the first Batman movie that I saw in theaters, so I remember going to see it opening weekend, and you know, being very excited for it, hyped up for it. You know, this was a big movie. I mean, you know, a lot of people tend to downplay what a success it was. I mean, like it's not like this was like a moderate hit that kind of, you know, limped along to justify what would ultimately become the downfall of the series in Batman and Robin. No, it was a huge hit, and you know, I think audiences responded to it and were open to this style. And obviously, I mean, there's always going to be the nostalgia factor. You're always going to kind of think, am I viewing this with you know, nostalgia goggles? But I mean, with the first two, I think I can separate that decently enough, and with this one I can separate it decently enough, and I do, to this day, I still really enjoy it for what it is, and I realize fully that it's not everyone's cup of tea, but at the same time it does make me a little bit sad that people don't enjoy this movie for what it is, as much as I think they should. I think it's a really good movie, and there's a lot of good to it. I mean, it works as a Batman movie, as kind of like the alternate thing. But I mean, sure, I could see if you were to, say, do a Batman movie marathon, I probably wouldn't blame you if you wanted to skip this one. But another way I see this movie is that it is a Jim Carrey movie. Really, I mean, it's a big cast with big names, but it's kind of Jim Carrey's movie. So I would say that if you're doing a Jim Carrey movie marathon, this is an essential viewing. Actually, I mean, this is 1995. This came right after his banner year with Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber in 1994. He kind of just basically overnight he became, you know, one of the biggest names in movies, in comedies, and he had such a unique comedic energy that, you know, people in studios and these kinds of productions were just waiting to harness. And you know, uh, to the production of Batman Forever's credit, they snagged him. They got him to play the Riddler, and this really, I mean, this is his first kind of big budget movie. The previous movies he's done weren't, you know, too, at least in, you know, prominent roles, weren't the huge events and the huge budgeted blockbusters that Batman Forever was. And I would say, in a similar way that Jack Nicholson contributed to the success of the first film, Jim Carrey certainly contributed to the success of Batman Forever. Though it's a supporting role. He's not top billed like, you know, Jack Nicholson was. But you know, in fairness, I think, you know, Jim Carrey is what brought a lot of people to this movie, and he's hilarious in the role. He's very funny as the Riddler. Every moment he's on screen is a delight, seeing him as a character. And I mean, that's kind of what it amounts to. Where the formula kind of went, it is with this villain of the week kind of thing, where we have the Riddler, but we also have TwoFace as well, played by Oscar winner Tommy Lee Jones, who, I mean, it's very interesting seeing him in a role like this, and hamming it up quite a bit as Harvey Dent, TwoFace, the maniacal, segregated one who wants nothing but to kill the bat. And you know, what does the movie demand of these villains? That they team up and they try to kill Batman. And Batman, of course, is played by Val Kilmer this time around. Keaton left. He wasn't really on board with this tone, this vision. So we got a different Batman and Val Kilmer, and he's really good. Really good as Bruce Wayne and Batman. I mean, he gets the character down pretty solidly, I think, and kind of hits the ground running with the role, and he's very easy to accept as this character right from the get go in his first and only Batman film. So I think he does a really terrific job in the character. Of course, we introduce Robin as well, Chris O'Donnell, like the 28-year-old playing a teenager. Um, he's good as well. I mean, not everyone kind of loves the Robin character, but I feel that in using him sparingly enough, and really only kind of introducing Robin into the picture, as full force Robin in the suit and everything like that until the very end of the movie. I think they used him just enough where there still was a focus on Batman, and certainly the movie it focuses on Batman, and looks into certain things about his character, like wondering if he wants to do this because what comes into the picture amidst this feud with TwoFace and the scheming of the Riddler. There's a psychiatrist specializing in split personality disorder, assigned by Gotham Police Department for help with TwoFace, wherein, as it would turn out, she'd be quite useful in helping Bruce Wayne. And I think in having this type of character as the romantic interest, which she wasn't from the comics or anything like that, she was a creation of this movie, as far as I'm aware. I think that it is kind of like a perfect kind of romantic linking with the character, where she can kind of help guide him along with this dual personality, as cheesy as it can be. I mean, this is like not a deep psychological examination. It's more kind of pop psychology to the movie, but it works well in what it attempts to do, and what, for the most part, I mean, it's successful in doing. So he meets this woman, Dr. Chase Meridian is her name. She's played by Nicole Kidman, who's very great. Kind of one of her first bigger roles, aside from what was the boat movie, Out to Sea? No, that wasn't it. Dead Water, Cold Water, something like that. The one with Billy Zane and Sam Neill. Dead Calm. That's it. Great movie. This is a pretty big role for her. She wasn't quite the huge, superstar acclaimed actress she was now. This is like kind of one of the first big movies that she was in. She's really good, and he falls in love with her, and as both Bruce Wayne and Batman, because she herself, she has this crush on Batman. She's fascinated by him, but at the same time, Bruce Wayne enters the picture, and he starts to court her and take her out to the circus, which was a very lovely date with only 3 deaths. He falls for her, and he's kind of thinking, well, I have this relationship from both sides. What do I kind of do? What path do I follow here? So he's conflicted about that, and he does kind of wonder, should I be Batman? He's has this big monologue. I've devoted my life to saving faces of those who I could not see. Batman is no more, and all that kind of stuff, and that's quite good, and it does revisit his memories of the murder of his parents, where that was something, while it wasn't a focus in the first movie, it was definitely there. It's an important trait to the character, and something that we find out about the character, and that helps shape him, especially when it turns out that the Joker is the murderer of his parents in the last act of the movie. It kind of sidestepped a little bit in the second one. It was already established, didn't really need to revisit that, but it goes back to that, where there is some kind of unfinished business about that, and what he remembers about that event in his life, and we get the revelation of at the funeral running away. He sees his father's diary, the red book, and it occurs to him that he would never write in it again, and he runs off, and then he falls into the cave, and that's kind of how he becomes Batman. And I mean, one thing worth mentioning about the movie is that there is a fair amount of deleted footage, which is a lot of it has always been available. Like there's a lot of like deleted scenes that you can see on the DVD and Blu-ray and all that. Other stuff that may have been planned but not filmed possibly, or just not included in the supplemental material of the home video releases. Apparently like the original cut was supposed to be 2 hours 40 minutes, something like that. A little bit darker in tone, and there's quite a few things like in that moment where he's remembering falling into the cave and seeing the bat. There's a big moment where he sees himself as not a child anymore, but as full-grown Bruce Wayne, staring into this giant animatronic bat thing that's quite cool. Like you can probably if you look up on Google or some videos on YouTube, I'm sure there's footage of it, or if you have the DVDs, you've probably seen it. That's quite interesting, and kind of one of the things that they omitted from the movie that unfortunately I think the whole movie almost seems to be driving towards it. So I'm not sure why they finally decided to cut it out. Was that kind of the repressed memory that Bruce had, and like what the original plan, what the original revelation of that scene, that memory, flashback thing was that he was to look into that diary and see that his father had written, Martha and I want to stay home tonight, but Bruce wants to go to the movies. And he had completely blocked that out, and he's dealing with the guilt that he has over at least in his mind, being responsible for his parents' death, indirectly, but still. So I wish they had left that in. This that's a pretty good angle to it. But I mean, maybe there's just too much guilt that Bruce has to deal with. He also kind of, in this movie, that's definitely in the movie, is that he has to kind of deal with a little bit of guilt over Dick Grayson and his family's murder. His mother, his father, his brother, they're all murdered. Again, and not really following the comics. I honestly couldn't tell you how it exactly goes down in the comics, but it's definitely not TwoFace. But in the movie, TwoFace hijacks the whole circus performance, and ultimately he kills the Flying Graysons, Sans Robin, who's grabbing this giant orb of 200 sticks of dynamite to save everybody. Robin's a hero and all that. But Two-Face was holding everybody hostage, saying, "I want to know who Batman is. You guys all here, you're part of Gotham's elite. One of you has to know who he is. One of you might even be Batman." And kind of in like a really pathetic attempt, Bruce Wayne yells, "Harvey, I'm Batman," which nobody can hear him because it's too loud. But if he had just if he had acted differently, if he had sacrificed himself, then Dick Grayson's family may have still lived. And of course, after the event, he kind of takes young Dick under his wing and sort of begins this whole surrogate father relationship with him. And ultimately, he finds out about Bruce's secret of being Batman and becomes Robin to help him fight Two-Face and the Riddler, and that's Batman Forever in a nutshell, I guess. I think it's a very entertaining movie. What can I say? I mean, it's hard to defend the movie. I mean, some people just they hate the style that this went in, how Gotham kind of looks, all neon and like Las Vegas lights and all that kind of stuff. But I kind of really like that, and I like the humor that they infused to the movie. I think it's really charming in a way that is over the top, but just right. And that in the next one, in Batman and Robin, they go too far with it, but they get it just right here. Really fun villains with Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, and and show stealer Jim Carrey as the Riddler, really really good. And for what it's worth, I mean, you look at the movie today and kind of what the evil scheme is, and it is kind of interesting where you know Edward Nygma, who's the secret identity of the Riddler. He's developed this technology, this Nigmatech box that attaches to someone's TV and shoots a beam into their brain and makes it seem like it's a 3D experience, and in doing that, it also sucks out their brain waves and sucks out their information. So, I mean, we have this technology that people in Gotham all become obsessed with, become basically zombies with, and it's stealing their information, which I think is, it's kind of, you look at it today and you kind of, think about it a little bit. You're like, oh, maybe this movie was ahead of its time a little bit with the evil scheme of Riddler, and his data mining and all that. So, I mean, that's kind of it's it's a fun scheme. I think all these Batman movies. I mean, they do have at least these first three. I think they all have kind of interesting against the grain kind of evil villain schemes and kind of that kind of make it. I don't know. All the more. I don't know, charming, unique. I mean, in the first one, the Joker's, mixing up chemicals and deodorant and hairspray and all other kind of hygiene products, and it's only a certain mix of them that will, prove fatal, and that's how he terrorizes Gotham. And in Batman Returns, there's this whole insane plot about the mayoral recall election and Oswald Cobblepot running for mayor and trying to kill all the babies, and they're unique. They're unique plots that you can only really find in these movies. It is better than giant death ray or whatever. I want to blow up the whole world, things like that. So I'll give these movies credit for that, and I give this movie in particular credit for having some more fun with the character, but still maintaining a reverence for what makes Batman so psychologically interesting. In addition to having all the fun gadgets and the Batmobile and all that, I mean that stuff's fun. But I mean they do a good job in balancing some more, I'd say, mature stuff. Nothing too deep, but I'd say mature enough. And I think it is a good romance between Bruce Wayne and Chase Meridian, and I think that works well. And I think who better to be Bruce Wayne's love interest than a psychiatrist like that, specifically one who deals with split personalities, which he's always been dealing with and things like that, and the themes of letting people into his life like Chase and letting a surrogate son into his life and Robin, and this whole partnership that comes of that, and how he sees this young kid. And he feels the guilt, but he relates to him quite a bit and kind of trusts him to be in his life, basically. And that's the good and the bad of Batman, having to deal with the dangers of Batman and all that stuff. I mean, there's silly stuff. There is. I mean, it's a wacky, fun movie. There's over the top action scenes, even over the top sound effects and stuff like that, and crazy neon lighting. I mean, like one scene where Robin's taking out the Batmobile when he first finds the cave where Alfred goes into the Bat watch phone that Bruce has. He's like, he's stolen the car, sir. What, the Jaguar, the Bentley? No, sir, the other car. And he's like driving around, and this girl's I guess about to be assaulted by these gang members. It all looks like it's like one of those 90s mini putts with all the glow in the dark kind of stuff, which is very interesting, by the way. The movie, it has a musical score by Elliot Goldenthal, who of course It did the wonderful score for Alien 3, another favorite of mine, another, I think, unfairly maligned movie, but it actually uses a passage from that film's score from Goldenthal, Wreckage and Rape, which, during that scene, so I mean, there's, the suggestion of this girl being raped, but I don't know, I think that's interesting that they take music from Alien 3 and put it in Batman 3, so I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Um, and yeah, there's silly stuff, the Batmobile going up the side of the building and all that, and cheesy one-liners and stuff like that. Though I mean, they're done again, just with everything else, with all the tone that this movie gets a little bit of flack for. I think it gets it down just right, as opposed to Batman and Robin, which goes over the top with some of their lines. But Jim Carrey has like really good moments. Um, one of my favorites is when Chase Meridian captured, and she's all chained up. He shows up with this, you know, uh, jacket with that's lighting up with the question marks. It's like the jacket keeps me safe when I'm jogging at night. I think that's really funny, and he has like 10,000 different costume changes in this movie, and he's always kind of evolving. And there is kind of something kind of interesting about the Edward Nygma character, and they of course look at split personalities with both Bruce Wayne and with Harvey Dent and TwoFace and all that, but they also look at an obsession disorder, as Edward Nygma has with Bruce Wayne, where right from his very first scene we see he has all these clippings of Bruce Wayne, all these pictures up, and he's obsessed with him. And as the movie goes along, and his Edward Nygma persona, he's always trying to mimic Bruce Wayne, so he looks exactly like them. He even has like a fake little mole. That he's like going to his henchwoman, played by Drew Barrymore. Sugar and Spice, or Two Face's henchman. How's my mole? How's my mole? How's my mole? I think that's funny, and with I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too much into it, but I suppose that if Batman really did want to stop Edward Nygma and his whole evil plan, I mean, really, he probably just could have sued Edward Nygma, because he did create that box. He created it on company time, right? So I don't know. Maybe if he was more litigious and got the Wayne Enterprise lawyers involved, and instead of dressing up as Batman, wandering the streets and punching all these bad guys out, maybe he could have actually stopped him a lot more efficiently than flying to Riddler Island in the Batwing and the Bat Sub with Robin. But I mean, I guess you can't really apply that kind of logic to this kind of movie, which is fine. It's a fun and silly movie. Again, it feels very much in line with something that you'd see from the 60s television show, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. It has enough that it doesn't feel like it's a complete replication of that tone. It's enough of its own thing, and it stands on its own quite a bit. And it's an impressive production. There is good production value here, and I am impressed with a lot of the aesthetic of the movie, and the production design, and the great lighting, and the cinematography. And I mean, it has really good technical aspects to it that I find quite good. And for what it's worth, I mean, this movie got Academy Award nominations for cinematography, for sound mixing and editing. So 3 Academy Award nominations. That's the most of any Batman movie, actually. So except maybe The Dark Knight, I guess. Maybe it's tied with the Dark. Well, at least Dark Knight won for Heath Ledger. But 3 nominations. That's pretty good. Pretty good Oscar nomination score for Batman Forever. And I think with its tone, it's confident, and it knows what it wants to be, and it invites the audience to have some fun with the character. And if you're in the right mood for it, I think it is quite fun, and I do enjoy watching it quite a bit. Quite honestly, I enjoy it more than like the Zack Snyder Batman, who's the Batman v Superman and Justice League, or I guess Justice League is more of Joss Whedon film. But I mean, let's say the Ben Affleck Batman movies. I like this. I prefer this much more to those movies, which are very confused in their tone, and don't quite know what they want to be. This one is quite confident. It's not Batman Forever because it has to be. It's Batman Forever because it chooses to be. And that's my review. Thank you very much for watching. I hope someone out there likes this movie too, loves it as much as I do. Maybe comment below if you're a fan. I know I'm not alone. But until next time, comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until then, I'll see you later.